I had to start everything from scratch because I wasn't financially competitive. What happened was after I had a bad experience with a major, you know. I had the misfortune of being with Epic at the time. They had the Michael Jackson Thriller album, and there were substantial periods of time that overlapped with when I was there that they worked on no artist but Michael Jackson, you know. So you know, I got out of there. You know, I could go, didn't want to gamble. You know, that maybe, you know, they fund me. You know. It's absolutely, you know, what the world must know is that, you know, Tuff City was with the Epic half of CBS, Epic Records half, and Def Jam was with the Columbia Records half. And Def Jam had a $750,000 budget for that first year, and I had a $20,000 budget for that first year. And you know, I mean, you know, when you're growing up and you're sort of like a sports fan, you don't realize why the teams in the major markets are doing so much better than the teams in the minor markets. You have no idea that, you know, your team is doing better because your team is better funded, has better players and stuff. So, you know, and it's interesting because when you're running a record company, you know, and you fit a certain stereotype, being from New York, you know, being ethnic and all this, and you know, it's easy to fit you into a negative stereotype. You know, I do business this way and that way. What I am very proud to point out is that 90% of Tuff City's records, you know, in the '80s, through, you know, for the duration of its existence, putting out contemporary music, were records that I generated from scratch. You know, nobody was bringing finished out. People were bringing finished albums to Def Jam. You know, because they, you know, because it's the bigger budgets.
Yep.
Or even after that, maybe Cold Chiller. You know, I couldn't compete that way. So every record that I made, with the exception of some, I mean, I picked up some masters here and there, and, you know, did a little bit of bidding here and there, but for the most part, necessity breeded invention, you know, and I would love, you know, this sort of, you know, any kind of retrospective to just show that I did it with A&R, you know, and not because I could buy the best talent or what have you.
Okay. And yeah, so I mean, another interesting artist that you had on the label was Funkmaster Wizard Wiz. That whole like crack it up thing was pretty crazy because, you know, that became like a cause and outrage, and then you know, you guys were pressured into releasing an altered version of the chorus. So I mean, what can you tell me about that story?
Well, the problem is that I'm not a dictator and can't have all copies of that altered version
destroyed.
But you know, I mean, it was a. I've told you that, you know, you had a fair chance of Red Alert playing your record without payout. You know, you had you know. The only chance you had of having your record played without payola was Red Alert. That said, you didn't have a good chance of having your record played.
Because there was still a lot of competition. And,
yeah. And he's playing this record, and it's just so early, you know, and I'm on the street. I am on the street. I'm drinking side by side with Ness of the Furious Five in Disco Fever, you know, and he's telling me, you know, you gotta check out this new drug called crack, you know. I mean, and I look. Remember how Chuck D called CNN you know, we called hip hop CNN.
Yeah, the black CNN. Whatever, yeah.
Well, I was the National Enquirer, you know. You know, beautiful. You know, I used to sit in the McDonald's on Broadway and 125th with my hood over my head, and I just used to listen for phrases I'd never heard before. You know, that's how you had records like, you know, "Get Off My Tip" and, you know, "Put That Head Out." You know, so beautiful record about crack. Hey, what, you know, what could be the big deal? It's just another drug, you know. And I get savaged. All of a sudden, Barry Mayo starts getting calls. How could you play this? This is a scourge. How could you be glorifying this? Now, that said, Crack It Up is brilliant, okay? This was, if you listen to it carefully, this was somebody doing, you know, in an idiot's dance in the throes of death, okay? This was not positive, but you know, you had to be able to, you could see how, you know, I'm not going to sit with Barry Mayo and, you know, the GM of this and say, no, this is Shakespearean. This is so magnificent. This is, you know, a jester, you know, doing a dance of death. It's not gonna, wasn't going to happen. So I took it back into the studio, you know, overdubbed. You better not, and nobody gave a damn, you know.
Yeah, because I think.
And if, you know, nobody gave a flying.
Right.
I sold out for nothing, you know.
But yeah, because
I
yeah.
recommend that people listen to it. That the two sides of those records, that and Bellevue Patient, are just the collaboration of two brilliant artists. Wizard Wiz and Pumpkin. Pumpkin was at his zenith, you know, using both live, you know, music and you know, and synthesizers. I mean, it was like, you know, Wiz came to him with the rhymes, and he was going, okay, I hear Dexter Wansell here, I hear Isaac Hayes. Let's just put the record together, you know.
What about like some of the other stuff, like what was it, Maximus? Oh yeah. So what can you tell me about some like the earlier records that there are some groups I don't really know much about, like Freddy B and the Mighty Mike Masters. I mean they had some cool songs. So, I mean, what was their story? Anything worth telling?
Red Alert was playing them. You know, I bought the master.
Okay.
And you know. And actually, you know, they had greater success with this record. It's the hip hop, which was Spider D production. You know, we made the follow up record. I mean, it was just, you know, what you were reminding me of is how different life was, how much bigger the world was on the strength of that record's success. This group, which was the first ever MC posse from Brooklyn. They're from Bed-Stuy.
Yep.
And they're playing, you know, the Rooftop, the legendary Rooftop in Harlem. And these guys were like fishes out of water, you know. And these, you know, for guys that had been all about Brooklyn to be in Harlem, I mean, you could see, you know, they were in strange territory.
How did the show go? They didn't get any bottles thrown at them? They were okay?
No, I mean, they were a very talented crew, and they just broke, I mean, just success. The success of that record, the modest success of that record broke them up.
Okay. But then
you know,
yeah.
By that time already, you had, you know, you were already getting groups that were forming to you know, be hip hop groups, or, you know, what, you know, it wasn't this kind of, you know, so like that Malcolm Gladwell theory of, you know, what happens at the beginning of something when it takes people years and years to get to the point you hear them at, till later in the evolution of things where, you know, you know, they've just, you know, there's much less, you know, veteranship and, you know, experience.
Yep. Okay. Well, what about the Maximus 3? What was?
I picked that up because it was a Barry Michael Cooper production. Barry was brilliant. You know, it was such a pain in the ass to put up. I mean, there will be a collection of Barry Michael Cooper's productions. You know, this guy was like a 19-year-old black guy on 135th Street talking a Jamaican shop owner who, you know, into making a hip hop record based on craft work and Gary Newman. You know. When I think of guys, you know, when I think of stuff like that, you know, you realize that, you know, some things take a while for people to catch up with. And his excellence as a producer, people still haven't caught up with. When I was a journalist, I interviewed Bob Marley, and he pulled out an ice cream cone of a blunt, you know. I had only been smoking Skinny J's up until that point, and I never pressed the on button with the tape recorder for the interview.
Uncut, baby. What?